Hey, what's going on, guys? How's it going? This video lesson is a very, very important lesson. Okay, this is called the relative major-minor concept. Alright, so if you don't already understand what this is, follow through this video and pay close attention because I really want you to understand this concept. This particular concept is what broke me out of soloing in just one little scale area. Like, we tend to learn a scale in just, one 4-fret area of the fretboard, and break it out into a much larger area of the fretboard. Okay, so for me, that's what it did for me, and I think it'll hopefully do the same for some people that are still new at this. So anyway, this is the relative major-minor concept, and this video is going to be divided into 3 parts. Okay, the first part is I'm going to tell you what the relative major-minor concept means and what it is. The second part is I'm going to show you how to determine what the relative minor of a major key is and vice versa. And then the third part is going to be I'm going to teach you how this actually applies to your playing. So how can you actually use this concept that I'm giving you to help you expand your playing from just a 4-fret region to a much larger region. Okay? So go through this video. It's about 20 minutes long, maybe a little less, but after it's done, you're going to have an understanding of how you can start soloing over a much larger area of the fretboard. Okay? So with that said, let's get started on part 1. Okay, so what the relative major-minor concept means. Okay, if you take a look at this figure that you see here, this is called the circle of fifths. You may have seen it before. The outer circle of this diagram shows you all of the keys in music. There's 12 possible keys in music. Okay, you have C, then right next to it you have G, then you have D. Excuse me. There's 12 possible keys that are shown in the outer circle. Now, for every one of these 12 keys, it has a relative minor, and vice versa. Okay, so the inner circle represents the relative minor of each of the keys. So if you look at the circle of fifths, then you see that right underneath C, you'll see a little A minor. Right next to G, you'll see a little E minor. Right next to D, you'll see a little B minor. Okay, so each of the outer circle represents the major keys, and each of the keys in the inner circle represents the relative minor of the major key. Okay, so every major key has a relative minor key, and every minor key has a relative major key. Okay, so what does that mean? What that means is they contain the exact same notes. Okay, so let's use the key of C major, for example. The key of C major contains the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then it starts back over on C. Okay, so if you start on C and then you go through the scale and you end on C, you have your C major scale. Now its relative minor, the relative minor of C major, is A minor. The notes of A minor are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it starts over on A. Okay, they have the exact same notes, just in a different order. Now let's use another example. Let's use the key of G major. Okay, the key of G major has the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and then it starts over on G. Okay, now the relative minor of G major is E minor, and the notes of E minor are E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, and then it starts back over on E again. Okay, so as you can see, they also contain the same notes. So that's what the relative minor means, the relative major minor. They are a major scale and a minor scale that are related to each other because they contain the exact same notes. Okay, and this works for all 12 of the keys. You can try it out for any one of the 12 keys. Alright, so that in a nutshell is what the relative major minor is. Now let me get into helping you determine what the relative minor is in part 2. Okay, so how do you determine what the relative minor or relative major is for a particular key? So I already showed you that if you look at the circle of fifths, you can just simply look at the inner circle, and that gives you your answer. However, you may not always have the circle of fifths available to you, or you may not have it memorized. So if you have a guitar in front of you, there's 2 methods that will allow you to determine what the relative major is or relative minor for a particular key. So the first method is you take the 6th note of the major scale, and the 6th note gives you your answer. Okay, so let's use the C major example. Okay, so if you take this 3 notes per string pattern and you apply this to your C major scale, okay, so your C major scale starts here on the 8th fret, note C. You play your C major scale, and you count up 6 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the 6th note of the C major scale is the note A. Okay? So that means A minor is the relative major of C. Okay, it's the 6th note of the major scale. So let's try this for another scale. Let's use the same pattern, but we'll try it for the key of G major. Okay, so the key of G major starts down here on the 3rd fret, note G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6th note of the G major scale is E. So E minor is the relative minor of G major. Let's try it for one more. Let's try it for the key of B. Okay, so B major, starting here 7th fret, E string, that's your note B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so the 6th note is a G sharp or A flat. Same thing. Okay, so that tells you that G sharp minor or A flat. It's called G sharp though in this particular instance. G sharp is your 6th note of the B major scale. So G sharp minor is the relative minor of B major. Okay? So that's one method of determining the relative minor of a particular major key. The second method is you can simply count back 3 frets from your starting point. Okay? So if you don't want to go and count your 6 notes in the major scale, you can simply just count 1, 2, 3 frets back. So let's try this with the C major scale again. So okay, we want to figure out what the relative minor of C major is. You start out on C, which is the 8th fret, and you count back 1, 2, 3. You land on your 5th fret, that's A. A minor is your relative minor of C major. 8 minus 3 is 5. You could do simple math like that too. Okay, so we can try it with the key of G. Okay, G is on the 3rd fret. 3 minus 3 is 0. 0 is your open string, your open E string. Okay, so that tells you that E minor is the relative minor of G major. Again, we'll try it with the B example. The key of B major starts on the 7th fret because that's your note B. 7 minus 3 is 4. So the note on your 4th fret is G sharp. G sharp minor is your relative minor of B major. Okay? And then this also works in reverse as well. If you're starting out on your minor and you want to figure out what your relative major is, you just add 3 frets, okay? So if you're at G sharp minor, and you want to figure out what the relative major is, 4 plus 3 is 7. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. So, relative minor, relative major, they're the same thing, they're just opposites of each other. So with that said, let me get on to part 3, and I can show you how this actually applies to your playing and how it will help you expand your soloing area, okay? Okay, now how this actually applies to your playing. Okay, so to explain this, let me first start out with a diagram that I'm sure you've seen before. This diagram I've showed you in the introduction to the natural minor scale lesson. Okay? We're going to use our 5th fret to 8th fret area for this example, okay? So we're going to play this pattern. This is your A natural minor scale, starting on the note A, 5th fret. Okay, that's your A natural minor scale. Okay, now if you take another look at this pattern, and we simply switch the location of the tonic note. Okay, now I switch the location of the tonic note, and I also colored it red. You can see it's the exact same pattern, but if I start on the red note and I end on the red note, this now becomes a major scale. This now becomes the C major scale, okay? Okay, so it's the same notes, same ordering of notes, but I first started out on the white dot, and then I went through the scale and ended on the white dot. So essentially I went from A to A. I did 2 octaves, but I went from A to A, and it was my A minor scale. And then I switched it up, and then I went from C to C, in which case it was the major scale, okay? So there's that pattern. Now we can also take this 3 notes per string pattern. Okay, so this 3 notes per string pattern is the pattern I showed you in the previous part, and I can go from red dot to red dot, starting on C and ending on C, right? And it's the same scale. Okay, so you see how I went from C to C, and it was the C major scale, and it also sounded exactly the same as when I played it this way. Okay, so when I play it in this area, the C major scale, I'm using what most people would typically see as the minor scale pattern, but really I was playing the major scale because I was starting on the note, the tonic note that made it a major scale. And then I moved up to here, and I played a more typical, well-known pattern of a major scale, and I ran through that, but it was the same scale pattern. Okay, it was the same exact set of notes. It's just 2 different patterns. Okay, now I can also use this 3 note per string pattern, and I can start on the note A within that pattern, and I can go to the note A within that pattern. Okay, now remember A is located as the 6th note of this pattern, as I showed you. So if I start on the white note and go to the white note, there I have my minor scale located within this pattern. Okay? Same notes, same pattern. I'm just starting on a different note and ending, I'm starting and ending on a different note. I'm starting and ending on the A instead of starting and ending on the C. So, hopefully this is making sense to you, but now you see that I have this much area as my framework for soloing now. Okay? So, if I'm in the key of C, and the band is playing something in the key of C major, and I want to solo in the key of C major, I can solo in this area, or I can solo in this area. Okay? Also, if the band is in the key of A minor, I can solo in this area, or I can solo in this area. Why? Because they contain the exact same notes. The only difference is the location of the tonic note. So if I'm in the key of C major, I can solo using this pattern or this pattern, but my tonic note is going to be the C, located within these patterns, okay? So you have a C here, 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 and you have a C here, okay? So within these patterns, it's still my framework, I'm revolving around the C, that's my tonic note. Or if I'm in the key of A minor, I can use this pattern. Or I could use this pattern, but now I'm focusing around my A. Okay, so I have an A here, 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 I have an A here. Okay, so it doesn't matter, major or minor, same framework, but now I have this much of an area to solo in. Okay, so that is how you can apply this to your playing. Now, let me give you a musical example of this, because that may help demonstrate this a little better. The first example I'm going to give you is going to be in the key of C major. Okay, I'm just going to loop over the chords. Okay, it's the tune Louie Louie. It's in the key of C major. So let me put that on my loop pedal here. Okay, so that's looped. Now I'm just going to walk up and down the patterns, and you're going to see how it sounds nice. All right, ready? So I was just kind of going up and down the scales there in the key of C major, and I was landing on the tonic note C, but you see how that scale fit right over that chord progression. Okay, that was in the key of C major. So now let me try one for A minor. Okay, so for this I'm going to loop this. Okay, it's the Mary Jane's Last Dance chord progression. Alright, so I'm just going to loop that. Okay, so now that's looped. Now I'm going to run through my minor scale pattern. So I'm going to start on the note A, I'm going to end on the note A. I'm going to run through the same exact framework in both patterns, but now A is my tonic note, so I'm going to start on it and I'm going to end on it, and I'm going to end my phrases on it. So okay, so there I was using the same notes, the same framework, just kind of running up and down the scale, so I was trying to time it correctly, so I was landing on the A at the right time. But you get the point, okay? I was using the same exact pattern, key of A minor, tonic note was A. Okay, so if I was to really be soloing and improvising, I have this much of a range to solo, and I'm not just limited to, okay, I'm playing a minor scale, so I have to play this little pattern here, or okay, I'm playing a major scale, so I have to play this pattern here. Now it doesn't work like that. You have the whole fretboard to solo within a key. Okay, so hopefully this relative minor major concept is starting to unlock some pieces of the puzzle as to the connectivity of the fretboard. Okay, so it's just a matter of different patterns where the location of your tonic note is within each of these patterns, and it's just groupings of 7 notes. Okay, 7 notes in a scale distributed all throughout the fretboard. Okay, but that's that. A minor, C major, they contain the same notes. The same test would have worked with G major and E minor. Likewise, the same test would have worked with B major, and G sharp minor, okay? So if you have any questions on this, or if I didn't explain anything clearly, I tried to do my best to explain this very clearly. If you have any question on this, feel free to hit me up, and I will gladly help you out. So with that said, thanks a lot.